For a second, neither of us spoke. The conference room suddenly felt too small. Emily sat perfectly still across the table, fingers clasped tightly over a leather portfolio I immediately recognized as expensive enough that she probably couldn't actually afford it. But the confidence I was used to seeing on her face was gone. Now she just looked tense. Careful. Human. The hiring manager beside me glanced between us. "You two know each other?" he asked casually. Emily answered too quickly. "She's my sister." The room shifted slightly after that, not visibly, but socially, because suddenly everyone understood there was history sitting at the table with us. I kept my expression neutral. "Yes," I said calmly. "We're related." Emily's eyes flickered toward me briefly. Searching. Probably trying to figure out which version of me she was about to deal with. The old one? The accommodating one? The sister who adjusted herself into smaller and smaller pieces to keep everyone else comfortable? That version was gone. I opened her resume slowly and immediately understood why she was here. No stable employment longer than 8 months, 3 unfinished certifications, vague descriptions instead of measurable achievements. She wasn't here because she was qualified. She was here because she needed rescue. Again. The hiring manager smiled politely. "Emily's applying for the client relations coordinator position," he explained. "Good communication background." Communication background. Interesting phrasing, for someone whose primary skill had always been emotional manipulation. I looked down at the resume again, then at her. "When did you leave Bloom and Avery?" I asked. Her posture tightened slightly. "About 6 months ago." The hiring manager checked the file. "It says mutual separation." Emily nodded immediately. Yes, something in her tone felt rehearsed, not confident, prepared. I leaned back slightly. "What caused the separation?" I asked calmly. The question wasn't aggressive, but her face still shifted immediately. "It just wasn't the right environment for me," she replied carefully. Translation: something happened. The hiring manager jumped in smoothly. "Emily mentioned she's looking for something with more long-term growth." Of course she was. Everyone looks for growth after exhausting their previous options. I studied her quietly for a moment. Then asked the question that really mattered. "Why do you want to work here?" Emily looked directly at me when she answered. "I want stability." The room went quiet for a second, because underneath the corporate language, there was something painfully honest hiding there. She was drowning, and she knew it. I should have felt satisfaction, maybe even revenge, after everything, the sabotage, the manipulation, the years of being treated like I existed to support her life instead of build my own. But strangely, I didn't. I just felt tired, because even now, sitting across from me in a professional interview, she still looked like someone waiting to be saved. The hiring manager smiled toward me slightly. "Any final questions from leadership?" Leadership. Funny word. 3 years earlier, my family treated my ambition like betrayal. Now I was the executive making final hiring decisions. Life moves strangely sometimes. I looked at Emily one last time, then closed the resume. "No further questions," I said calmly. Relief flashed across her face instantly, too quickly, like she thought survival itself had just been approved. The rest of the interview ended normally after that. Professional handshakes, polite smiles, carefully controlled energy. But as Emily stood to leave, she hesitated near the door. "Can I speak to you privately?" she asked quietly. The hiring manager glanced toward me. I nodded once. The room emptied slowly until it was just us. Silence settled immediately. Emily looked different without an audience. Smaller somehow. Less constructed. "You look successful," she said finally. Not bitter, not mocking, just observant. "I am," I replied. She nodded slowly. "I heard about the promotion last year." Of course she had. Families always keep track of success once it becomes undeniable. I waited. Eventually she exhaled softly. "I know you probably hate me." Straight to it. "Interesting." "I don't hate you," I said honestly. Her expression flickered slightly, like that answer surprised her. "You should," she muttered. A long silence followed. Then she laughed once quietly. You know what the worst part is? I didn't answer. Mom still talks about that brunch, she said. That almost made me smile. Of course she did. For my parents, the greatest tragedy wasn't emotional damage. It was public disappointment. She says that's when the family changed. I looked at her carefully. No, I said quietly. That's when I changed. Emily lowered her eyes briefly, then nodded once. I know. Another silence. Then finally, I was jealous of you. That caught me off guard. Not because I didn't suspect it, because she admitted it. You were the capable one, she continued quietly. The one who could survive without anyone. I stared at her, because that was never how it felt growing up. Growing up, I felt invisible beside her, but maybe that was the irony. She had attention, I had independence, and somehow we both envied the other for different reasons. You sabotaged my interview, I said, not angrily, just truthfully. Her face tightened immediately. I know. Why? She swallowed hard. Because I knew if you got that job. A pause. You'd stop needing us. I almost laughed at the accidental honesty in that sentence, because she still didn't fully understand. The job didn't change me. It revealed me. I already had, I said quietly. That landed heavily between us. Emily looked away first, then finally whispered, I'm tired. Not dramatic, not manipulative, just exhausted. And suddenly I saw it clearly. Years of being protected had not made her stronger. It made her dependent. While I spent my entire life learning how to survive without support, the silence stretched. Then she asked softly, Are you going to hire me? There it was. The real question. Not about the company, about power, about whether I would finally do what everyone expected revenge to look like. I leaned back slowly and thought about my father standing in that hallway years earlier, telling me family mattered more than my future. Thought about my mother calling ambition selfish. Thought about Emily gripping my arm outside that elevator trying to stop me from walking toward my own life. Then I looked at the woman sitting across from me now. Nervous, ashamed, no longer untouchable, and I realized something important. Success stops feeling powerful the second you use it to become cruel. No, I said calmly. Her face fell instantly. Then I continued, I'm not hiring you because you're my sister. Confusion flickered across her face. What? I'm hiring you because despite everything. I paused. You actually interviewed better than half the applicants. She stared at me, completely stunned. You're serious? Yes. Her eyes filled suddenly. Not dramatic tears. Real ones. Quiet ones. I don't know what to say. I stood slowly, gathering the resumes from the table. You don't have to say anything, I replied. Then I looked directly at her. But understand this clearly. She nodded immediately. This is the last thing anyone is handed, I said. If you stay here, you earn it yourself. For the first time in my life, my sister looked at me with something other than entitlement. Respect, small, fragile, but real. And as I walked toward the conference room door, I realized something almost funny. 3 years earlier, my parents tried to stop my future for my sister's brunch. Now my sister worked for the future they almost took from me. And the difference between us was simple. I built mine myself.